Welcome to the Revival Method podcast, where we teach you actionable steps that you can take to start moving, thinking, and feeling better. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Revival Method podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brandon Parker, and today is day 7 of our Revival Method challenge, which means we are 1/3 of the way done, and I'm already getting amazing feedback from all of you. I have some of you telling me that you were dealing with a lot of pain and now you're already pain-free, which I don't necessarily promise people because pain is such a dynamic, complex thing where you can't really guarantee that. But to get that type of review or that type of feedback is amazing to hear. And some other things that I'm hearing is some people are restoring the range of motion that they thought they lost forever. Some other people are saying that they can't believe they've been accountable for this long and they're already seeing results. And I think that's rooted in something that's very important, where things don't need to be complex in order for them to be effective. And we don't want things to be overwhelming either, because they will undermine the most important principles for success. And that is sustainability and the ability to be consistent. You can have the world's most perfect program, but if it doesn't allow you to be consistent for a very long time, it's not going to work. There is a million ways for you to move and feel your best. It all comes down to how do we fit it into your lifestyle. Okay. Today's episode, oh, by the way, it's also Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to everyone's listening. I have a brunch that I have to help prepare for after this episode. So we're going to keep it short and sweet today. Before we get into today's episode, I do have a quick ask for you. If you've been listening to this and you've been getting any type of benefit from it, if you can subscribe to the show and give it 5 stars, that would mean the world to me. If you're listening to it on YouTube, just thumbs it up, maybe leave a comment. And then on Spotify, it's the 3 dots at the top right corner. And then when it comes to the Apple podcast, just scroll to the bottom. So without further ado, let's actually talk about our topic of the day. With everything going well, I did see a trend of things that we should actually touch on and talk about. So some of the trends that I'm seeing is people are saying that they're doing great, but then they quote unquote cheated and they had a certain food, or they were doing perfect and then they succumbed to wine night with their friends, things like that. And I feel like that thought process of good and bad foods shows that there is a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness, and also somewhat rooted in the all or nothing mentality. So before we get into some of the specifics here, I think that it's important that we set the frame and how we should be thinking about this. So a lot of people listening to this podcast have the goal of moving their best, feeling their best, and part of that equation is making sure that we're shedding excess body fat. And in order for us to do that, we're going to have to create a caloric deficit. What that means is we have to structure our dietary intake to be us eating less energy than what we are burning. Okay. And that's going to be dependent on how active we are, what our metabolism is currently doing, and what we're currently eating. So, with that being said, there's a cool story that I like to tell. There was a PhD nutrition professor who wanted to prove the fact that when it came to losing weight, it doesn't matter about the foods you're eating. It's about the quantity and the energy that you are consuming. For lack of a better words, calories, right? Now, we're not talking about health here, but there was a very interesting outcome that I do want to highlight as well. So this nutrition professor decided to go on a 10-week dietary intake of just Twinkies, protein shakes, and a multivitamin. So by all stretch of the imagination, I feel like we all could say that that's not a healthy intake of food. However, at the end of the 10 weeks, he was able to lose 27 pounds and his blood work came back actually better. And this isn't me saying that, hey, let's eat the Twinkie diet because it's healthy and the blood labs show it. But this more so shows that You can eat whatever you want. And as long as we're appeasing the principles of um, burning more calories or burning more energy than what we're consuming, we can lose weight. But also, it shows how inflammatory and how stressful having excess body fat can be to our body. So, by simply focusing on reducing some of that excess body fat, we could basically take the ball and chain off our body so it no longer feels bogged down by inflammation and all these other things that excess body fat can do to us, right? So, I wanted to share that story to kind of set the frame. This man was able to achieve the goal of losing excess body fat by eating Twinkies. And most people that are the people that I'm giving this podcast for would say, like, how is that possible? That is bad food. Well, there is no good in bad food. Food doesn't have morality. There is certain types of food that might be more conducive or more aligned with your goal. And there might be other foods that are just less aligned with your goal. But I do believe in order for you to live a healthy lifestyle, there is different facets, right? There is the physical, there's the spiritual, right? And there's like the interpersonal, right? So like I think in order for you to exemplify health, there needs to be a social aspect to your life, right? You have to have that connection. We're human beings. We're tribalistic. We have this need to connect, and for you to perhaps say like, "Hey, I'm not going out for drinks tonight because um, I don't have I'm trying to lose body fat," or "Hey, no, I don't want that slice of cake," or "I don't want to go to the birthday party because I'll probably snack too much." You are restricting yourselves from the food, but you're also restricting yourself from the social encounters that propel us to being healthier, right? So I just wanted to like set that perspective up where it doesn't need to be that way. If you are in this, if you find yourself doing this, it's rooted in unawareness. It's rooted in a lack of skill set. And we can actually improve this and fix this very quickly. So this is why I'm like super adamant about people taking the time to track their food. And I should put a caveat here. If somebody's dealing with an eating disorder, you need to seek out a professional. And by you tracking your food, this might trigger you. So this is not what I'm talking about. This is more of a generalized statements that I'm making. So that being said, um, by sitting there and taking the extra minute and a half that it would take per meal to track your food, you are going to start building a skill set, or I would say building the awareness around how you are eating, how you are spending your calories, right? How are you meeting your protein goal? Like these are things that if I were to ask you up front, you would have no clue. But if you understand that if you eat enough protein, you build more muscle, your metabolism speeds up. So it's easier for you to lose body fat. If you have more muscle, you are actually going to move and feel much better because things aren't as heavy or physically demanding, right? If I ask you, hey, how many calories did you eat today? And we know that your body burns somewhere around 2,500, random number, 2,500, and you don't even know if you ate 3,000 calories or 2,100 calories. You don't know if it was a day that was for your goal or against your goal, right? So this state of unawareness actually just bogs you down and it makes you feel even more stressed out because you don't know, right? And that's the thing that I see the most with my clients when they finally get over that false belief that tracking their food is super time consuming, that they say, "Oh my god, I can't believe I was doing XYZ. I can't believe that I thought I was in a caloric deficit. I thought I was watching my calories, but I was actually putting 400 calories worth of creamer in my coffee every morning." I mean, that's enough for you to negate any fat loss phase, right? Or, for example, I had a client that didn't realize that she was mindlessly snacking on nuts, which she always thought was deemed to be healthy, but she didn't realize that she had like 600 to 700 calories just per hand, like each throughout the day, like as she's handfuling a couple of nuts here and there, that would be like what she would build up in her, like how much she ate. So just taking the time to record it starts to really highlight areas that we can immediately improve upon. And I don't know about you, sitting in this state of not knowing and slowing down our progress because we don't want to take the extra minute or so it would take to track it, it just seems foolish. It just seems like we're going down this path of that's much harder for no real good reason. I like to kind of view it like this. Like, think of like your financial budget, right? You get your paycheck. Some of it's going to savings, some of it's going to utilities, and then you have leftover money where it's fun money. You want to spend it the way that you want to spend it, right? It's the same idea when it comes to our calories. You have this intake of food where some of it's going to go to necessity, right? We're going to make sure we save a little bit for a caloric deficit. But then we have this leftover calories that we should be able to spend it how we see fit, right? So, all that being said, tracking your food isn't super labor intensive. It doesn't take a lot of time. And then eventually you actually build a skill set where you don't need to track anymore because a lot of it's just kind of intuitive and like, okay, I probably didn't have enough protein today. Okay, I am probably overeating today. Maybe I should dial it back, that type of thing. And the approach that I'm going to give you is something that I work on with my clients that I feel like is an absolute game changer. I call it lifestyle eating. So we know that when it comes to a caloric deficit and fat loss, we need to be looking at it more so on a weekly basis than a day to day basis. So let's say you're somebody that wants to lose a certain amount of weight and you plan to have a 300 calorie deficit each day, right? So that would be like instead of it being 1,800 calories that you're eating every day, you're only going to eat 1,500 calories. And we know that Monday through Friday, we tend to be more structured. We tend to really hit our marks more so because we're either really busy at work, so we have to plan our foods and we have to be somewhere at a certain time. Whereas the weekend, we're kind of waking up when we want to, we're kind of moseying along, things like that, right? So we know that we're more structured Monday through Friday, whereas the 2 days of the weekend, we're kind of just doing our own thing. Well, let's lean into that. I think that's a really good idea where Monday through Friday, let's make our caloric deficit more intense. Well, I would say slightly more intense because we're spreading it across 5 days. But then on the weekends, let's not be in a caloric deficit at all. Let's actually eat at our theoretical maintenance. So what I guess what I'm saying here is if we're eating at maintenance on Saturday and Sunday, we're not pro fat storage or we're not pro fat loss. It's just a net neutral. But our Monday through Friday is going to be pro fat loss because we're going to be in that deficit. So you're creating the same amount of fat loss, but you're getting a 2 day break where you can actually get those extra calories back into your diet. You can go out to eat with your friends. You could do all these things that you thought you couldn't do before, right? And I think that's really important that we really highlight that, where once again, you can have the foods that you want to eat. It all just comes down to what your budget looks like. Okay. Now, as I promised earlier today, or earlier in the podcast, that I wanted to keep this short and sweet. It is Mother's Day. But if I had to say anything, is start building the skill set, start building your awareness around the foods that you are eating, and it will set you free. That underlying fear that you aren't making the progress that you are making, you can look at objective data that doesn't have any emotions. Because another thing I've mentioned in the last podcast is let's say you are in a caloric deficit, right? And you step on the scale and you see that the weight didn't change, but you've also been resistance training. You're going to see most likely a net neutral on the scale, and that might make you freak out. That might make you jump to another type of intervention that's going to lead to the results that you're looking for. But that's not what we need to be doing. We need to be consistent. Okay. I hope this kind of illuminates some of the issues that you might be dealing with. Remember that there are no cheat foods, there are no diet foods. It's just food, right? um, and yeah, let's just make sure that we strike a balance between everything. You should never be restricting. You should never go extremely hungry when you're in a fat loss phase. You need to be finding something that's simple, sustainable, and something that you can stay consistent with. All right. I hope you enjoy your Sunday. Everyone be good. I'll be posting another one of these, I believe, Thursday.